area of concern for me. And I guess, I mean, it's out of his hands in some ways, but the Balk call on Kevin Gausman. And as far as I can tell, and I think Codify, the Twitter account, showed Kevin Gausman's very next pitch after the Balk. I didn't see a difference.
There is not a difference.
I didn't see a difference between two pitches. And what kind of concerns me about this is, first of all, that seems to me that that's an umpire who's been told to look for something.
Jeff
Nelson. But the other thing, too, what happens if that's in the playoffs?
I don't think it would be. I don't think.
No,
he
but why?
Would do that
Okay, but why on September?
You'd have to ask Jeff. The only person that would know that's Jeff. Kevin's been doing this since he's been doing it this way. Like,
there's no change in the very next pitch. There's no change. He could have called it again.
He sure could. Yeah. You'd have to ask Jeff. I have no idea.
Weird.
I don't know any answer. I don't know an answer to that. It's very hard to take up for umpires. I mean, you saw Manny Gonzalez. Look, it's too late in the season to be sitting here both sides. It's too late to be sitting here and when you have a strike zone that's big down and big away.
Yes.
I don't care if you're on the other team, if you're a Jays fan, if you're
pick one.
If you're an Orioles fan. Yeah. Look, the strike zones, that automated strike zone thing's coming. And whenever it comes, the Manny Gonzalez's of the world can go home and look in the mirror and say, I had a little something to do with that. Like it's my fault. Like so I'm one of the people that you can blame for the automated strike zone. I just don't understand it. He was consistent with it. You can give him that, but at this level, with as hard as these guys throw, and as much as the secondary pitches break, you need umpires to be better.
Yeah.
And when they're not held accountable, which they're not, let's be honest, they are not held accountable. They're
really
not like players. It's very hard to take these guys serious. And when Jeff Nelson does things like this and then bows his chest out like he's going to throw somebody out when you knew what was going to happen. You knew Kevin was going to act exactly the way Kevin acted. And good for Bo running over here. But for Jeff to be able to do these things, I'm sorry. This is something that has needed to be corrected for a very long time. It will never be. The pin the Blue Jays have right now, do you think, your opinion, they can make a deep run in the playoffs using this pin?
This pin, I think, because of two people that have helped the Blue Jays get a deeper pin and make the turnaround and keep it much more consistent. The emergence of Tim Mesa, getting the sinker back and looking as dominant as he has, and Trevor Richards has been an absolute glowing rainbow for this ball club out of the bullpen over the last 4 or 5 weeks. They are trusted arms now in this bullpen, and then that ripple effect is, okay, now we can use Adam Simber. Now we can use Anthony Bass. Zach Pop's going to be part of this thing, too, down the stretch once he's eligible to come back. And I know just because of formality, he had to go back to AAA after being the 29th man yesterday. Then you get Jimmy Garcia, who is going to be electric, and he has found another gear, and then Jordan Romano. Two guys, if you continue to get the consistency over the next 5-6 weeks, this is going to make a bullpen much more stable for the Toronto Blue Jays and alleviate a lot of the question marks, because there were some holes. There were definitely some holes, but where the bullpen is right now is as solid as it has been all season long.
Yeah, before we let you in, I did want to ask you one question about the bullpen, something Kevin and I talked about as well. I love the way John Schneider used that bullpen during the bullpen day, going to Jimmy Garcia in the 5th inning, right? Getting the double play, like a big... Going to your 8th inning guy, going to your trusted 8th inning guy who you know is better on rest and who knows he's better on rest and is probably happy that he's found a role and saying, we may need you before the 8th today. 4th inning, get ready. That's...
Yes.
That we can debate about how what impact a manager has on the game, but I still think there are games where bullpen use tells the tale. And that, to me, was a game... When we look back in this year, if this year goes well, if the Jays not only get to the postseason, but if they win a series or a couple of series, we may look back at that bullpen day in Pittsburgh and say we learned something about John Schneider that day.
Well, and Jimmy Garcia, right,
And
for
Jimmy
accepting that
Garcia,
role
yes.
and being ready in that moment too. I love when Jimmy Garcia has 2 and 3 days rest, because I think the fastball is it's got some jump on it, it's got some life. The extra rest doesn't affect him, and I know I've talked about that a lot. And on the broadcast too, this is where when I'm talking about pockets of a lineup where the Blue Jays examine, that is the exact moment that the Blue Jays identified. It could have come up in that 5th inning, Jeff, or it could have come up in the 8th inning.
Sure.
Jimmy Garcia was going to get that matchup right there. And going into the ball game, that's an identified pocket of 3 batters or an up down, if you will, to come in and say, this is the best matchup for you. If there's a jam here, be ready. And the Blue Jays in the bullpen, one, hear that. Guys harness it, and Jimmy Garcia, with all of his track record, I mean, he could be a guy that could chew on some nails and maybe not be as happy about trotting in there in the middle of a ball game than he would be as the 8th inning. The Blue Jays have embraced this, and this is a really important step for where the Blue Jays manufacture opportunities within a given game. And this is why you see some starters come out a little bit earlier than what you would expect too, is because these matchups are coming and Jimmy Garcia comes in there. I thought that was the biggest pitch of the road trip so far, him getting that double play ball. I really did. I thought it was clearly the turning point in that game, because the Pirates had some life, and then the Blue Jays come out and just stuffed it with Jimmy Garcia getting that double play. Then he comes out and gives them another 1, 2, 3. I mean, it's great, and it worked perfectly for the Blue Jays. And I think this is what we're talking about, gaining momentum and gaining trust, because even with a modern manager and all the analytics, you still have to push the right buttons and get guys into the right situations when you manage that bullpen. And recently, the Blue Jays they have not missed a beat doing it.
Bo Bichette, I'm just looking at some of his numbers since in his last 27 games. Let's make it the last month. He's hitting .321. His OPS is .962. His weighted runs created plus is 174. You compare that to 104, the first 105 games, the .260 average. OPS someplace around 7 and change, under 720. Is this the weekend Bo came out to play, Ben?
I talked with Bo in Pittsburgh about the first couple of months of the season and getting through the dog days of summer. And I think there's a mental shift with Bo Bichette recently. He looks at September as a chance to play with adrenaline, the surge of September that a couple of Blue Jays have talked about, and the urgency. And it's no coincidence for me that conversation and just hearing Bo talk about September differently and kind of turning the page and moving forward to the end goal here, where the Blue Jays have themselves positioned, and they know they're a really good team in September. They proved that last year. They love playing with that light at the end of the tunnel. Here we go, drop the hammer. And Bo is that. What impressed me about Bo recently is the fact that he is looking and he's attacking. He's certainly attacking. He's always attacking. But he's also looking for the breaking ball in the first pitches. And he was able to jump on him early. He played all fields, which we haven't seen Bo drive the baseball. And look at the Pittsburgh series, even with the singles. Game 1 yesterday with the base hits. And then look at the exclamation point with the home runs. He hit a home run to all 3 fields yesterday. And that tells me that Bo's going up there with a plan, first and foremost, with a plan, and he's going to take a next step, and that's turn heat around as well. He can take heat to the middle of the diamond. He can go the opposite way. The next step for Bo Bichette, and it'll be interesting to watch, to see how he's attacked the rest of this series and moving forward in that Rays series, how fastball velocity is pitched to Bo Bichette, whether they try to get it in and he can turn it around. That's going to be the next step for me, and watch Bo really come out and